Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Rights for Women. Today I have a very special episode coming your way, and I'm really excited because I'm actually recording an episode with my 4 fellow anthologists from this book that is coming out next week, A Country Vet Christmas. So if you're watching on video, you can see the gorgeous cover that HQ HarperCollins have designed for us. And the book is a compilation of 5 novellas featuring myself, Alyssa Callan, Penelope Janu, Lily Malone, and Stella Quinn. So I thought it would be a great idea to get the other 4 anthologists, and I don't even know if that's a real word, but hey, let's go with it, on today to talk about putting together the anthology, writing a novella, because that was a new experience to me, and telling you about the stories that are in this anthology, as well as hopefully giving you some great writing tips, which I'm sure will be happening. So I was going to introduce the panelists to you, but I'm going to wait until they pop on and they can introduce themselves. And many listeners will be very familiar with all these 4 authors. They're all multi-published authors, and many listeners will be very familiar with these other 4 panelists today. They're all multi-published authors, and I was so excited to be included in this anthology published by HQ. So I don't actually have any writing tips for you today because there are going to be so many on this episode that I thought I'll just wait until the end when everybody contributes their own. Let's get straight on with chatting with today's guests, my panel of anthologists from A Country Vet Christmas. Okay. So welcome to the right. So Penelope Janu, can we start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your writing.
Right. Thanks, Pam. Lovely to be here today. My name is Penelope Janu, and I live on the Northern Beaches area of Sydney, but I basically grew up on a horse in semi-rural areas in New South Wales and Victoria. And I write rural fiction, rural romance. I was a lawyer for many years, many decades, to be honest. And so I started writing. My first book was published in 2017, and I've been pretty much writing a book a year and the odd novella ever since.
Thanks, Pen. Lily.
Hi, I'm Lily, and I'm sitting in my little walk-in robe closet over here in Kawarramap, which is, usually we're better off to say it's near Margaret River in southwest WA. I've been writing this year. 2023 is my 10-year anniversary of when I was first published, which was back with Escape Publishing as ebooks initially. But yeah, I'm really thrilled to be part of this Country Vets Christmas with all these gorgeous ladies sitting here. And my writing life, I haven't been very productive lately, but it's always fun, and the people in it are great people.
Oh, thanks, Lily. And we share the same publishing anniversary, 10 years for me.
Awesome.
Actually, it was last year. Oh, and Melissa too.
Yeah.
Melissa, sorry. Yeah, we've been going for a while.
Yeah.
That's why we're beloved.
Beloved. Stella.
Right, I'm the new kid on the block then, because it's nowhere near 10 years. So I've got 3 rural fiction books out, with another 3 coming, only one of which is written. So yeah, 2 of them are just a twinkle in my eye at the moment. So a lot of work ahead. I live in Brisbane. I grew up in a small town in New Guinea, and that's why I like writing about small towns. And anyone who's read my stories will know there's always animals. There's a lot of knitting. And I generally got some pretty eccentric town characters, all of whom are based on the small town characters we had growing up. And I just love having them in there. They're my favourite part to write.
I love that you draw those from your real life experience too.
Yeah.
Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. I'd just like to, before I introduce myself, say thank you to all the rural listeners that might be out there and who read our books, and their support is very much appreciated. So if you're a rural reader, thank you so much for listening and tuning in. My name's Alyssa, and I'm coming from you, even though it looks really tidy and calm, my office in my little farmhouse, and it's actually really noisy outside, so I do apologise. I write books that are basically, as Stella was saying, loosely based on my own real life, threads of my real world, often make them into my stories. I write stories about communities and small towns, and basically the same sort of themes, obviously, that what make rural so special and important. I love animals, and I also love that sense of resilience that we have out in the bush here as well. So I hope if you haven't, a listener, you haven't read any rural, that, yeah, you pop on and find some books to read, because they're really lovely. Special genre to read, and it's also a special genre to write in as well.
Couldn't agree more, Alyssa. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And for anyone that is listening that doesn't know about me, I write stories about women who are at turning points in their lives, stories about longing and belonging, and always set generally in a rural location, and often have a horse, often feature a dog. So have a lot in common with my fellow panelists here today. And I'm recording this in my caravan, vintage caravan, Virginia, where I always record the podcast. So let's get on to talking about the anthology. And I'm going to start with you, Penelope, because the anthology was really your brainchild. So can you tell us where the inspiration came from and how it happened to be that all 5 of us are part of it?
It's a good question, Pam. I think it was, the first thing, the title came to me, Country Practice Christmas, I guess. And for country practice, for me, being a lover of animals and everything else, I was really loved the idea of being a vet, but I was not at all strong in maths and sciences. But vet is having animals obviously have a lot to do with vets and things. So I thought, and then I really thought about some gorgeous writing friends I knew, and I read stories where the main characters had been vets. And of course, that was Alyssa and Stella and Lily, and also you. And I was at that time, I think, writing a main character who was a vet. So I thought, wow, that's such a fascinating area, and we all write quite differently. We might focus on the animals and the environment, or all different aspects, country or rural life. So I thought, how wonderful to bring all that together. So I actually emailed all of you, I think, and said, would you be interested in doing that? And then informally, my publisher at HarperCollins HQ, I pitched that to Joe Mackay and Johanna Baker there, just informally at conference, actually, when I was meant to be talking about something else. I said, I've got this really good idea. And they just went for it. I think it is a really lovely idea, and I think it's lovely, fantastic to work with all of us together. But also having that common thread that we found, that we've written vets, yet we've all written, which is wonderful in this anthology, very different stories about vets, because let's face it, vets are characters, and all our characters are so different, and so that means all our stories are very different too.
Yeah, that's so true, that whole idea of it having that common theme, but all the stories being different. Of course, we all write in different styles, but it's always fascinated me. You can be in a room full of writers, give them all the same topic or the same starting point, and go in so many different directions. And I think this anthology is a really great example of that. Pen, you had been in a previous anthology. Was it last Christmas or a couple of Christmases ago?
No, that was actually, oh goodness, that came out in 2018, I think, and that was good because I'd only written one rural novel. That was On the Right Track. That was the one, my first rural, and my publisher said that these other more established writers were writing anthologies, and I think that was one of the stories, was a story that had been published previous. She said, would I like to write a rural for the Christmas anthology? And I just jumped at the chance, and that was, Christmas is a wonderful getting together time in our life, and my Austrian heritage and English heritage, and I just loved writing that story, and it was such a joy to write. And I think that was probably part of the stepping stone to do this one. I thought, that was 2018. Writing another one would be really enjoyable. But that was the first novella I'd ever written, and the story in A Country Vet Christmas is the second. Not that we need, we've written the longer form, obviously, but it is actually a lot of fun writing that shorter form. I think we all had a lot of fun doing that, and especially with having that Christmas theme and the vet theme too.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm probably the Christmas Grinch amongst the group. So I find it a bit funny. Here's me sitting writing this Christmas novella with trees and presents and Christmas fates and glitter and tinsel and all these things. And goodness me, in my house, it's lucky to get, you'll never walk into this house and see the Christmas wreath going, welcome, on the front door. None of it.
Melissa, you've been in a few anthologies yourself in the past. This, for me, was a new experience. I'd never been in an anthology, and I'd never written a novella, which I want to talk about in a little while. But what do you see as the advantage in a couple of things in writing short, but also in being part of something like this, where you're in a group of writers all publishing in the one book?
I think for me, because I am a really slow writer, but writing such a smaller chunk of words actually gives me a greater motivation and sense of achievement, because I think, look, I'm almost halfway. So whereas on a longer book, it's really, am I only at this point? So I really adore that about novellas is that just that it's their smaller format. I think too with novellas, there are, as much as I enjoy writing my multi-layered and longer stories, with novellas, you really strip it back and pare it back. So you can really focus on a few core things. And so I really find that sort of attention to detail, I really enjoy doing that in a smaller format as well. And I think if anyone is writing a novella, a little tip is that you have the characters know themselves before. So all that time that you might spend in a longer story having the characters get to know each other, already they know each other, you can hit the ground running straight away. I like that too, because in a way, that backstory is already done in your head. So when you're writing a smaller novel, it just comes onto the page. I really like that about a novella as well. Another thing I like about a novella, and it's because we write about communities, and I really like that sort of writing a project with other authors, because that is like a little community within ourselves as well. I've done some Australian novellas. I've also done some for some American-based ones as well. And so it's lovely because people can have ideas, and people can spark off other ideas, and that just sense of camaraderie as well, that we're all have a same deadline and we're all trying to work towards the same thing. So I think doing a novella, I love doing that by itself, but if it's part of an anthology, it's even better.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Stella, I was going to ask you, because I remember when we first started off on this project, and we were all starting, and some people started straight away and others were like, had other projects on, so it had to be delayed and things like that before we got to the deadline. But I went into a bit of a spin because I had never written a novella. It's a virginal experience for me. And I like in long form writing to actually do all that character background and have the backstory and have the psychology of the characters. But as Mel was just saying, as Alyssa was just saying, you really need to just get going and just launch straight into the story, even more so than you would with a long form. But what are some of the other things that you find are important in writing in this shorter form of a novella?
I do remember that conversation, and I think I gave out a lot of advice, none of which I followed. I did find it challenging because I really you want to go deep with your characters, because really my story is a relationship story. So you don't want to just have plot, you've got to have feelings involved, but it's very hard to go deep in that shorter time frame. And Alyssa's totally hit the nail on the head when she said, make it a second chance opportunity for two people who already know each other. That way they've got runs on the board in a sense. So if they're suddenly madly into each other in the third chapter of 10,000 words, it doesn't seem forced and ridiculous. I did not do that either. My people have never met. So then I would try and have time passing between scenes so that the reader thinks, 2 weeks of living in the same caravan, for example, or have occurred. So we can understand that there's been some more of a gradual getting to know than there might appear to be on the page. And I know I started a few chapters with 2 weeks later or whatever, and the editor made me remove those. She said, no. Yeah. So nothing was easy about writing this novella, to be honest. The other problem I had was I threw in I set it in a world where I've already written some stories. And so I picked one of my fun secondary characters and thought, I'll give Sandy, the vet receptionist, I'll give her a story, because she was a great character. But I'd already established the fact in a prior novel that she had 3 children. So then I had to have 3 children also on the page, and I didn't want them to seem like cardboard cutout characters. So I had to give them a personality and some speaking lines. So suddenly I was clustered with all this stuff that wasn't really driving the relationship forward, but it had to be there to make the story seem like a rich world that you know. So yes, I think you might have asked me what was good about it, and I've just given you a lot of examples of what I found challenging about it. What I did love was, because I set it in a world I'd already written and I'm so fond of, and I've got maps, it was just a joy and delight to trot out these characters that I love, like the bossy woman who runs the town social agenda, getting Marigold and her husband Kev back on the page again. That was fabulous.
So nice to go back, and when you know
Yeah.
the characters already, it's like meeting old friends, isn't it? And
Yeah,
you already know
yeah,
them. You don't have to go through that whole process of getting to know them, and you can.
yeah. And I wouldn't necessarily give them their own story like a 100,000-word book, but there's a lot of miles in them yet to show on the page. Yeah, that was a great thing.
Oh, brilliant. How about you, Lily? How was the whole process of this novella writing for you?
It was good. I really enjoyed it. I've written one before, quite a while ago, which was called The Goodbye Ride. It was actually the second book. I think I even self-published it, but then Harlequin Escape wanted it, and it's still with them. And that book came out in an anthology, funnily enough, in print this year, or last year. I don't know, one of the years.
Recently.
Yeah. So like even you would know when they picked the 3 authors. So I was really pleased to get a novella in with 2 full-length, Tricia Stringer and whatever, but they still published it in print, which I thought was great, which digresses right round. But the interesting thing for me too is both A Country Music Christmas in our anthology and The Goodbye Ride have characters that have never met. And The Goodbye Ride, they have to get their love story happening in 4 days because it's set over a long weekend in Hahndorf in South Australia. So I think they run into each other on the Friday, and then everything has to happen super fast. But what I love writing about them. It goes back to what Alyssa said. I like that you only have this 30,000 sort of words, and you can really feel you're steaming along, and that the end is in sight. And for somebody like me, especially last year, this year, struggling with time to write, struggling with the idea and how I would go about it, just being able to think of it small instead of thinking it long really helped me motivate myself and keep going and push through to the end. And I love Jolene's story, The Country Music Christmas. I had such fun with all of you ladies writing it, and just that idea was one I'd been brewing and sitting on for a little while for Country Music Christmas.
Oh, brilliant. We're going to hear about the actual stories in a minute, but Pen, first I'll go to you. Did you have any challenges or anything, or how did you find the process of writing this particular novella?
Yeah, it was interesting actually, because the first novella I wrote, the characters didn't know each other at all. And so, yes, very much was more of a challenge because that was very much a relationship-based story. In the second novella, maybe I took Alyssa's advice. I probably did. Why wouldn't I? The characters did have a little bit of history. The Amber Churchill, the main character, she was a younger sister of the male lead, and so they knew each other, so they had background. And I think that makes a really good point. Alyssa and Stella reflected that too, in that the family perhaps that the person comes from, perhaps, or something about what they've done, people that know them. And I think that does probably help in a matter of trust. There's a certain element of knowing that character. But again, look, I'm just a real dag, and I do like Christmas. And so then as soon as, and I think we've got some really fantastic things in Australia. I know it's the traditional Christmas tree, things like our native flowers, and you just have to look really hard for some of these things. But there are fascinating facts on Australian mistletoes. We have so many mistletoes in this country. There's one in the UK. And so bringing out those elements of sort of the Australian Christmas as well. And there's the smaller things you have to look for. It's a really good opportunity to explore some of those things. So yeah, it was a happy experience. And I do Christmas, and I did a bit of a countdown in this novel. So then it's a matter of finding all sorts of exciting things about Christmas for the characters. Yeah, I did enjoy. And this particular character really enjoyed Christmas. In my last novella, that character didn't enjoy Christmas. And there's all sorts of backstory stuff that comes into that. So it's a really good opportunity to explore that.
As I said, I hadn't written a novella before, so I was really appreciative of all the advice from you more experienced novellarists. But yeah, in the end, I actually really enjoyed the experience because of the short thing. Like, I'm getting towards the end of a draft of a novel now, full-length novel, and it is just, I'm at that point where I just want to poke my eyes out. I do not want to still be writing this book. I could have written almost 2.5 novellas by now. So that was really good. I did struggle a little bit with, as I said, like having to pull out the backstory, but a couple of you, I actually set it in a town where I'd set my first book, Blackwattle Lake. So the setting was familiar. I didn't have to worry about that. I could describe that easily. I had 1 or 2 characters who were really minor characters make an appearance, but otherwise it was a new cast of characters. But I actually enjoyed that too, like putting some new characters into that setting, and it was actually really good. It came out relatively easily, shall we say. Let's get on to talking about the actual stories. If everyone could, we'll go around, and if everybody could tell us a little bit about the story, what it's about, their main character, and just anything else you want to share with listeners. Lily, we might start with you because you're so excited about your country music Christmas, and I can't wait for listeners to hear about Jolene.
Oh, thank you. Yes, country music Christmas. I think that if I go back to the inspiration for it, I've had this idea for a little while. A few years ago, it's a while ago, we watched a documentary called Country Music. It's an amazing documentary, and it's got Charlie Pride and Johnny Cash and goes right back to Hank Williams and Patsy Cline, and I love the music. So in many respects, the music was a soundtrack for me through writing this book. But the idea of Jolene, which is a song that I just love, and it's so iconic for Dolly Parton, but I started to think about poor old Jolene gets a bum rap in that book. And there's another side, I'm sure, to every story. There's another side to every character. And I was like, I wanted to write about another Jolene, a different Jolene, but one who's struggling to run away from that stereotype. So that's my A Country Music Christmas. My main character is Jolene, and she's a singer, and her mum is a huge Dolly Parton tribute show act. So she's grown up with Dolly, a mum with the big wig and everything, and the huge boobs in her house, and they sing together. Jolene always sings Jolene. But luckily for her, to make just a little sidetrack in her life, she has studied vet science and studied to be a vet. And when a scandal erupts for her on the tribute show, she runs away. That's where my story kicks off and starts. Jolene lands herself as the locum in Chalk Hill vet practice, filling in on some maternity leave for my character from the Vet's Country Holiday, which was Izzy. And my little novella kicks off from there.
Lily, that sounds fabulous. And I know the whole Dolly Parton theme there is just going to be one that readers are going to love. Stella, can you tell us a little bit about your story and your character?
Yep. So also a documentary was one of the inspirations for my story. So I had two inspirations. One was the ABC series called Muster Dogs, which came out maybe a year and a half ago. 5 Kelpies get born and they're given to a trainer each. And in the documentary, one of the Kelpies called Lucifer, he's a nutcase, and he doesn't really make the cut. But then he's given to beautiful Frank Finger, who takes him off to Queensland to live a wonderful life. But I loved the idea of the naughty dog. And then my other inspiration was, because a bit like Lily, I've got a Grinchy core. Christmas is complicated, particularly like in my family, we're a separated family, lots of kids. Christmas can become a tussle about who is where. You lose sight of whatever the good stuff is. It can be very difficult to even remember anything other than feeling resentment about having to deal with stuff that seems to be just taking away from your life rather than adding joy to it. So I wanted to put these two competing ideas in a story. So my main guy character, he is a locum vet, a bit of a nomadic sort of wanderer character, and he has a side gig as doing radio show. He brings in radio stories from outback Australia, from wherever he is, because he goes to all these weird and wacky locations. So a bit of a Steve Irwin type, really, but on the radio. Anyway, he has been watching the Muster Dogs show. It's called Working Dogs in my story, and it's cattle dogs. And the cattle dog gets booted off the show at 3 months because it's useless. And so my guy, Elliot, he makes an on-air bet that he can have that dog walking to heel in 8 weeks. And anyway, the show producers say, all right, come and pick it up. So this sort of happens before the story. So at the beginning of the story, he rocks up to Hanrahan to do his Christmas locum work, and he's got this cattle dog puppy under his arm. But my main character, Sandy, she's been divorced twice. She's got Dickhead X number 1 and Dickhead X number 2. She's got 3 sons, and she hates Christmas. And when she sees tinsel going up in the stores, it's the beginning of a huge pressure build-up because she can't afford good things. The kids all want an iPad or whatever because their friends are getting them. She can't afford that. Will their dads call them on Christmas Day? Maybe they won't. So she's not looking forward to anything at all. She just wants to slide through the season with as least drama as possible. So then she meets this guy who he's just filled with joy, and he gives her a different way of looking at what Christmas could be for her and her family.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, a lot of tension.
The other inspiration for my story, it just reminded me of it, was that the Paul Kelly song, How to Make Gravy.
Oh, yeah.
Where some guy's in prison and he's writing a letter back home to talk about what he misses about Christmas, and what he misses is making gravy around the stove. And I think that's what Christmas really is about, those lovely family warm memories. Like my kids will remember playing cricket in the backyard, and I think that's a much better memory to have than the fact that no one remembers that they all had matching napkin holders that year.
Definitely, definitely not. Alyssa, can we hear about your story and your protagonist?
Okay, so my story in this wonderful volume is Snowy Mountains Mistletoe, and the title basically encapsulates all of my story. It just brings together, I'm team Christmas a little bit, actually a lot. My kids would say that when they were growing up, it looked like Christmas had just exploded, but now that my children are all young adults, I think we've got one tree. We've definitely downsized the whole Christmas chaos, but I think the thing is, for me, this story basically brought together everything that I loved. It was the setting, the mountains, the small town community, festive seasons, and I too have a main character that is not a fan of Christmas, but hers is more based in trauma. So for her, it's a very emotional time. And so basically I had to laugh though, because my main character, the orthopedic vet, is called Trent, and he appears in my Snowy Mountain series across all the other books. And I always had him there in the background, but I hadn't actually worked out if he would have a story. And I was writing the second book, Snowy Mountains Cattleman, and this city girl just suddenly appeared on the page, and she like power walked on, and basically it was like she never left. So I thought she's a perfect foil for Trent. And so her name was Aubrey, and she comes to my small town of Bunbilla, just basically to an escape, and it's there that she's reacquainted with Trent, and then everything that she has experienced over Christmas, she has emotional closure as well. It is hard, what Stella was saying before, about having that emotional element as well as the plot. But I think novellas you can still have, there is still some wiggle room to do that, because I think, to me, as I was writing it, I didn't mean it to be such an emotional story, but I think I'm fascinated by how brains of writers work, and some people are plotters and some are pantsers, and I plot in broad outlines, but then I basically go off-road as I write, and I hadn't imagined it there was a little bit of a deeper element in there that I hadn't originally planned, but it just came along with Aubrey. And so it turned out to be a little bit more emotional than I planned, but it still has all the lovely Christmas things that I really enjoy writing about. So it's basically just a footnote, because my Snowy Mountain series is finishing, and this is so that lovely way of ending it, with Trent and Aubrey having their happily ever after.
Oh, that's nice.
With a bit of help from a Kelpie and a few matchmakers, and the quilting club that sort of mistletoe bombs an old cow shed. So I think, I had a lot of fun with this story.
Yeah, it sounds like it's got a bit of everything in it.
Yeah.
Pen, what about yours? Tell us about yours.
Yeah, and Alyssa made that point about plotting and pantsing and so on. That was my trouble, because I thought I had this vet character in the country, and she was decorating her house, because I knew that she would love Christmas, and I had an idea about the other character who wouldn't be so keen on Christmas. And she was walking down the steps after wrapping tinsel around the eaves, and she pointed her toe, and that was literally on page 1. And then she was a ballerina, and so she was a ballerina. She was a professional ballerina for a few years. She had a terrible injury, and that had been her dream since childhood. That's all she wanted to do. And so she had to find a new dream. And the way it turned out was actually through animals need movement to survive. They can't without that. And so she has made this link between this past career and her current career as a vet. So pointing the toe down the steps meant that, I had the ballerina thing going on. And that gave her a very rich, a very true backstory. But it also meant that she was in the country now. She was away from her family, and she really started again, very much started again. And she was in a very safe place, and she was happy there. And so when this kind of big city blow-in, Jasper, arrives on her doorstep, literally, that was a real risk to her to take him on. And she knew him as a certain sort of person, and he really has to prove to her that, because she loves Christmas and loves the idea of it all and bringing everyone together, and not necessarily the tree. There's a lovely secondary characters who don't celebrate Christmas, and they have a real Christmas Day barbecue for all those who don't necessarily have families or others to go to. So she's very involved in the town and also the medical centre. So he really has to prove to her that she knows that Christmas has got nothing to do with money. It's to do with everything else but commerce and finance. And so then there ends up some sort of a challenge. It's a countdown to Christmas. So he has to show 10 non-commercial ways to show her that he actually does understand or begin to understand the spirit, true spirit of Christmas in terms of love and forgiveness and acceptance and joy.
Oh, I love the sound of that. I think that's just brilliant. And the commercial aspect of Christmas does my head in too, and the plastic and the wrapping and the stuff. So I think that just sounds brilliant.
My story in this anthology is called A Christmas to Remember, and I thought to make it easy for myself, I would set it in the world that I knew, which was the world of Blackwattle Lake and the town of Yarrabee. And I kept one character from Blackwattle Lake who doesn't play a huge role, but he is the vet in the town. And I brought in a main character who was the daughter of the previous vet. So the vet who had been in the town for years and years had handed the practice on, and this other new guy had kind of come in. The older guy, who is the father of the main character, has had a stroke, and she's been working overseas for Vets Without Borders and traveling. She's an only child, and she found being in the town quite suffocating. Being an only daughter, expected to take on the practice of her father, was quite suffocating, and she left the town and hasn't come back for about, can't remember, hasn't come back for about 4 years. And she comes back because her father's had a stroke and she has been a bit estranged from her parents, but is going to reconcile. But at the same time, bushfires are breaking out in the area. The current vet in town, Hugh, asks for her help in helping with some of the influx of animals that are coming in as a result of the bushfires, which are at this point south of the town. They're not actually threatening the town, but they're getting animals coming into the practice. And there's also a wildlife refuge situated in the bush to the south of town, which is under threat. And that is the character called Chad Stewart, who runs the wildlife refuge, and he is getting animals coming to the refuge, wild native animals. And because she's been working overseas, Darcy, who's the main character, goes out to the refuge to help him, and there are bushfires around. It was partly inspired by, obviously, my previous book, Blackwattle Lake, but also there were bushfires in that, but that came out 10 years ago, that story. But a few years ago, in the bad bushfires in New South Wales, our family property on the south coast where my daughter was living was threatened and almost burnt down, and pretty much everything around it burnt. So we were involved in that, and it really brought home to me firsthand how frightening and traumatizing and how it can throw a community into such a panic. That was the inspiration as well. And then I went down so many rabbit holes on Facebook with wildlife being rescued during bushfires and things like that. It was great to research it and found some amazing stories, one of which I draw on for this story. So,
just going back to novella writing a little bit, but I think even though we're writing shorter, it doesn't mean you can't include these issues, the community issues like the bushfires or commercialism at Christmas or whatever. My story has a bit of a touch on mental health issues and things like that. So I think you can still have a lot of depth to it, even writing shorter.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's part of the challenge too, isn't it? Because we're used to writing the long form, but we know there are certain, to make a character true and rounded and believable, and for the readers to care about those characters, we can't give any of that away at all. And so, the different layers, but and I think that's probably why we all get involved even with our characters in that shorter form, just because they have to be real people and with real issues too. That they have to face.
Definitely. Exactly as you said, Lily, for my character Darcy, a situation that comes up as a result of being involved in the bushfire triggers a memory from her childhood that she had forgotten or repressed, and explains a lot about her character. There is still, even though it is a shorter story, there's still very much that kind of background and depth to the characters and the psychology coming in, which is what I love about writing. All right, we've touched on writing process, pantsing and plotting, but I just wanted to go around, if everybody could do a little bit of a quick roundup on whether you're a pantser or a plotter, and how you basically structure your time in terms of getting your writing done. What is your kind of writing process? Pen, can we start with you?
Oh, yes. My writing process is somebody walking down the front steps and pointing their toe, and there I've got a ballerina. It's all a bit, but sorry, as far as doing it, I do make myself sit at the desk, and I do write full time now. I'm sort of do one novel a year, and the novella is a little bit of icing on the cake. So, I basically work 5 days a week. Obviously, it's lovely and flexible being a writer, and it's really nice being part of all that writing community and so on. So there's that. Also, importantly, obviously, is like hiking and doing other things, and I think that does play into my writing, like animals. I like being involved with those. So all of that kind of comes together, but essentially you have to be sitting down or standing at a standing desk to actually write, get the words down, and I do make myself do that. And I start early. Usually I do 3 or 4 hours early in the morning if I can. Now the kids have grown up, obviously, although I have my grandson, so sometimes I can't do that. But yeah, and then I tend to edit in the afternoons. So yeah, I do by the end of the 5 days, I do have words on the page, hopefully, and yeah, things go on that way pretty much throughout the year.
And you don't plan in advance, do you, Pen?
I don't. No, I plan a happy ending. That's easy. And I get to know my characters and I edit as I go, which isn't always. So I'm quite a relatively slow writer in a way but I think part of that is plotting while you're writing, really, because I know that if I'm editing and I'm not feeling the love for it, I think it's probably gone in the wrong direction. So that means that I go back again. So by the end of it, really, I start on page 1, I finish on page whatever, and it is basically there. Sometimes so it's only the later half or third where I really get to know the characters well, and then I have that sort of aha moment, okay, this is the problem, and then obviously you have to go back and strengthen the first half now that you know the characters.
I love that. Alyssa, how about you? You mentioned that you were a pantser, I think, or
I'm a hybrid. So basically, and I probably call me crazy, but before I even start, I write my blurb. So that's really crazy. I have to have a title that's symbolic and I write my blurb. But basically my blurb then distills down to the core sort of issues and elements of my book. It's also my blueprint. So it just sounds really strange, like I'm doing it in reverse, but I have my blurb first, plot in broad outlines, but then as I go, basically off-road. As I said, I can go anywhere within that sort of framework. In terms of my sort of writing, I write like Pen. Writing's what I do, but that doesn't mean I get to write every day. So basically, there is no typical day for me. I might be able to spend all day writing words on the computer, or I might only get 5 minutes. But the only common denominator seem to be is that when I'm on deadline, that basically there's lots of chocolate eaten by me. My husband has very quick meals, and when I'm walking outside in the paddock, I've got my arms waving and I'm talking to myself. I think I really call myself a feast and famine writer. Basically, I might do not very much because of life, and then suddenly I just have to write a lot. Yeah, I probably don't recommend that because I think a little bit like Pen was saying, consistency just is probably a much better way of writing a book. I only ever work on one book at a time. I write it chronologically, and again, like Pen, I edit as I go because I figure if I take a U-turn or a wrong turn early on, I don't want to power ahead to the end to then come back and realize 80,000 words ago I took a wrong turn and I have to rewrite. I am a very slow writer, but yeah, I think that's what I said about being fascinated by a writer's brain. Everybody has an individual process and there's no right or wrong way to do it. And I just think it's just amazing that we all do the same thing, but we approach it from so many different angles.
Yeah, I love that too. It's great, isn't it? Stella, how about you?
I want very badly to be a plotter, and I love a spreadsheet, and I also use index cards, and I write little scene maps for each scene. And what generally happens is that I write about 30,000 words, and then I think this is all garbage. And sometimes it really is garbage, but then sometimes what I find is I don't actually know my characters well enough. And even though I know this is a problem, so if I start a new project, right, now I'm going to really know my characters. So I think I've done the work, but then I get into it and I think I don't know who my characters are until I've written 30,000 words and seen them do stuff. And then I start to get an idea of who they might be, which might actually throw my whole plot out the window and I have to pants my way onwards. So I wish I had a good process and I wish it got easier, but it just doesn't seem to. And when I get to the 100,000 word first draft, I've lost all objectivity and I cannot tell if it's amazing or the biggest load of rubbish that anyone ever typed into a keyboard. Completely no objectivity at all, and I have to put it away then and not think about it, just really pretend I don't even write for a living to come back to it to give me that some objectivity again. But Penelope, I'm an early bird. I need to find a coffee shop that opens at 6 a.m. I like to write in a coffee shop with my dog at my feet. I like a grungy coffee shop I don't want anything fancy, and I need it to be almost barely empty. So the ideal one I go to at the moment is in a sporting field. It's a shipping container, and you sit on like a milk crate. But the beauty of it is it's not busy. So I can be there with my eking out my coffee for 3 hours, and I don't feel bad because it's not as though they need the table or the milk crate to serve up someone's fancy eggs Benny or whatever. And deadlines are very motivational. So I've got a day job as a tax accountant, which is awesome, very creative, not 3 days a week. So the other 4 days a week I do devote to writing. So I'll do, say, 3 hours of writing in the morning, and then I faff around on social media. But if I've got a deadline, that'll be 4 8-hour days in a row for the month before deadline, because I'll be panicking and typing. I think the most I've ever written in one day might be about 12,000 words, panic writing, white knuckle, boom. But in general, I'll probably try and do about 2,500. If I'm motivated and I know where I'm going, I'll try and do 2,500 words in a session, because that for me tends to be about a scene.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Lily, how about you?
I would used to immediately answer this question and say I'm a pantster, but I think I actually have a little bit of plotter that I'm trying to grow, like a little plant. So I have to get the idea. I definitely don't write the blurb first, Alyssa. So if I have my idea, then I can write just something about what's going to happen in each chapter somewhere. I'll put chapter 1, this chapter 2 to the ending sort of thing. And that's only small and it's really rough. So, but that's plotting for me. I have no whiteboards. I don't have spreadsheets. Anything that makes writing mathematical just turns me off so fast. My brain just doesn't work that way. And that goes right back to the things about, you read stuff about 3-act structures or 7-act scenes or whatever that is, and that has never meant anything to me. But basically, that sort of outline, and then I just start at the start and get to the end. And I do also edit as I go. I've been told, and I like to think, that I write very clean copy by the end of it. I'm a long ago journo and ex-editor of various different things, and I think that comes through. You can only go on what you've been told. So they may say that to all you girls. I don't know, but they've told me that I write clean. So I have always found that as quite a compliment when you submit something, that they've not been able to find a bazillion errors in it, sort of things. But my writing days, I, like Stella, I work a 3-day week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I like to think that means that I have Thursday and Friday for writing, but usually Thursday I clean my house. I have 2 teenage boys, one about to hit 8 next year, and they have sport and they have cricket and football and they have stuff, and I'm a taxi service. And I'm right, I think part of my issues is I don't know if you have the idea of the sandwich generation between your parents and stuff. I think when they're younger, maybe there's more time somehow, although they're more demanding, but you're not driving them places and then sitting and watching the game. Or 3 or 4 years ago, I was working 1 day a week and writing 4, and that was the sort of period when I wrote the 3-book Chalk Hill series. But the world changes and circumstances change, and my writing, I'm very grateful for the time I've been able to put into it, that 10-year time, but it has to pay its way too. And I do see it definitely as a business for me, or I call it my side hustle. But my side hustle does pretty well, and it's a real weighing up of the financial business aspect. Whilst I hate math, I do have a business brain about these things, and I don't quite see the point of writing for nothing financially. Like, it's got to give a return. I don't love it that much, all this strain and pressure we put ourselves into to just do it because I like doing it. Like, it's got to make something at the end of the day. So I agree with Pen that the only way to get going is to put your bum on the seat. I seem to find every possible way to not put my bum on the seat. But definitely Pen's suggestion of writing Country Vet Christmas helped get my bum on the seat at a time when I really wasn't doing much writing at all. So I'm very grateful for that. And I think I said that in my acknowledgements. She gets a big rap for motivating Lily.
We're also grateful to have Jolene on the page. So thank you, Lily. And just quickly, Stella mentioned, when you mentioned the spreadsheet idea, and Stella very kindly, because she knows these things, I think very early on when we were just getting together on the anthology, you sent around a spreadsheet because in case we had overlap of names or animals or this or that. And I don't think we were very good spreadsheeters. I remember there was something, I said I had a wombat and Pam said, okay, I won't have a wombat then. And that was about it.
I use spreadsheeting for procrastination, the way I suspect Lily uses Thursday house cleaning day for procrastination.
I use the podcast for procrastination,
Right.
amongst other things.
So your process though, Pam, you've got to tell us about that.
My process is a bit higgledy-piggledy. I'm a pantser by heart, but having, as you'd all know, like when you are writing for traditional publishers and they ask what's going to be in the next book, you have to come up with some kind of synopsis or a blurb, like you were saying, Alyssa. And so I guess over the years I have taken on a little bit more of a plotting brain. Not that I plot everything out at the beginning, but thinking about the turning points. And I am someone who loves the 3-act structure, Lily.
Oh, gosh. Oh, head explode.
I love to know where my turning points are going to be and what's going to happen at the midpoint and all that sort of stuff. And sometimes I'll get to that point and think, no, that's not right. And like you, Stella, I think I get to about the 30,000 word mark and go, no, that's not right. And usually have to go back and tweak the beginning and get back to that point. So I find, particularly with this book that I've been writing at the moment, which is fairly typical, I think, of my process, I tend to do a bit of move forwards, then I'll go, oh no, that's wrong, I've got to go back and fix that. So I go backwards and revise a bit, then move forwards again. So it's a little bit stop start. I'm not very disciplined. I'm very fortunate to have Penelope texting me most mornings and saying, are you writing yet? Because she knows what a slacker I am. But like many of you too, a deadline is a magical thing, and it does actually make you put your bum in your seat and get the words down.
I think it's important to say, if there were aspiring writers watching this, you know how we say edit as we go, or it's wrong, so we go back. I think there's a whole other writing process challenge to the aspiring writer, which is finishing a book. Because you know how it's really easy to start, and it's really not really easy, but having a compelling beginning is a much easier thing to do than having a compelling middle and compelling end that goes with that beginning.
Yeah.
So I think if you're an aspiring writer, getting that to the end has to be done, no matter how much editing you're doing along the way or thinking you're editing along the way. You've just got to reach that end point, because you learn so much by getting there. Yeah. I found in my own journey. Yeah. And novellas and short stories are such a great tool for that, because you can practice doing beginning, middle, end in a shorter form than the $120,000 women's fiction. $120,000, sorry. $120,000.
We wish. Let's write that one.
120,000 word historical fiction novel or what have you.
Yeah. It's all about the money. Let's write the $120,000 book.
It is not.
That leads me on to the next thing I just wanted to quickly ask everyone about, and we want to finish up with asking everyone what you are working on now, what your next release is. But before we do, that was a great tip, I think, Stella. So let's go around and just one tip that you could give to aspiring or emerging writers, or anybody out there who might be struggling a bit with their writing. Alyssa?
I'd just say to read. So read for craft, but read also to feel that creative well. And one thing is to also, it sounds strange, but pay it forward. Kindness and helping other people, it really, particularly for people starting out on this writing journey, it really means a lot. So I try and pay it forward, but just reading, because I think that's one thing about deadlines is they're really good for that volume of words, but that they can stifle that creative joy when you say, I've got to do. However, I can't believe you write that many words, Stella. I'm flat out writing however many my pitiful amount is. But to do 12,000 words a day, I think that's the thing, is that just to enjoy, even wherever stage you are at in your writing journey, just to enjoy the little things, because deadlines can be when it is a business, like Lily said, so you have to reach that. So just enjoy whatever stage you're at, try and pay it forward and just read. Just find that love of reading and of writing, which is probably what motivated you to put fingers on keyboards in the first place.
True, very true. Penelope?
I very much echo Stella's advice to actually finish the book, because I think that is so important, and I know when I finished my first book, took forever and it was much too long, but it was in the editing of that book that I learned how to write. You can't learn those lessons unless you've actually done it. And so that's a really important, whether it's a really long book or a really short one. Also, just finding time to write too. You mentioned her teenagers, and I didn't start writing till later in life because it's just finding the time to do that. I think it's really important, if you possibly can, to, and this is speaking as women generally, we do have all sorts of not only paid work, but we have a lot of unpaid work. And it is, if possible, to get the people around you to respect that when you are writing. No, it might not have an immediate financial consequence or value, but it is valuable and it is to be respected. And so it's not tinkering around, even if it's an hour a day on the weekends, to be given the respect to actually have that time to write, to dedicate to writing, and to have people around you respecting that is something that's worthwhile, that it's something that is giving you joy and pleasure, but more than that, that you're going to be able to reach readers with a voice, with something to say, and that you do have something to say, and that should be respected.
I love that, Pen. Thank you. Lily?
I think I would say find a tribe and make sure you've got supportive people around you. I would, if it's romance that you're looking to write, I would join, and it doesn't have to be, but Romance Writers of Australia is a really great group. I'm sure there's Sisters in Crime if crime writing's your thing, but join a group, find a tribe. I think that helps a lot.
Yep. Lovely. Stella, did you have anything to add?
Oh, yeah, I think don't discount competitions. The only reason I'm published by HarperCollins is through a competition, which I didn't win it, but it got my entry was shortlisted, and so the publishers read the shortlisted manuscripts, and that was what got me the phone call, because Australia's a very small publishing market and a limited number of books are published each year, and particularly if you're writing genre fiction, which is, I love genre fiction of all sorts. I think in genre fiction, it's about they have a limited number they can publish each year. They want them to be immediate, like sellers off the shelf. There's a lot less give, like in a literary style publisher like University of Queensland Press. They've got one strategy they're working towards, which is not necessarily, things flying off the market at the shelves at Big W. Whereas genre fiction, they really want to appeal to the Australian reader who's going to Big W and Kmart and Dimmicks and places to buy their books. And entering a competition for a genre fiction can get you exposed to publishers other than sitting in a slush pile that may never get picked up.
Yeah,
great advice. It's hard to come up with anything new because I give writing tips every week on the podcast, but just something that you mentioned, Stella, and it's something that's been helping me this week, is using index cards. Sometimes I plot out the whole book when I'm at the revision stage, plotting each scene on an index card, looking at what's the character's goal, who are the other characters involved, what's the conflict happening. This week, I've actually been writing down to remind myself those things. What is the character's goal? What does the character need? What are some of the obstacles? And actually putting them on index cards and having them in front of me as I write the scenes. So it's fresh in my mind. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. It's keeping me, because I have got a deadline. I haven't got time to waffle. So it's really keeping me on track, having that in front of me. So whether it's Post-it notes or index cards or something, I just find jotting things down like that and having them laid out in front of you as you write can be really helpful.
Some years ago, at the university in Brisbane, there's a university that offers a postgrad course in writing, editing and publishing, which is fabulous. And we did a subject on the structural edit of a novel. And one of the tips we got was to use an index card for each scene, but on it say, what has changed at the end of this scene? Because the idea being that if nothing has changed at the end of the scene, maybe you don't need the scene. Or you can collate it with another scene so that, but what's different now? Yeah. And that can help you focus on what the scene's actually supposed to be doing, as opposed to just talking beautifully about the gum trees.
Yeah.
Which is worthy in its own right.
All right, I have kept you all for so long, but it's been so lovely to talk to you. But before we go, just a very quick roundup. If everyone could tell us either or what your current project is, what you're currently writing, or what your next release is. Pen?
Oh, my next release is
from A Country Back Christmas, of course.
Yes, of course. Yeah, my next release is actually 1st of December, Sunshine Through the Rain. So that's another long rural fiction novel about a vet, another vet, not a ballerina vet, but a very committed vet. And I'm currently working on my 2020 for what will be my 2024 book. So I'm actually, people, a few times we've all mentioned the 100,000 words and you think, oh my God, this is just an absolute crock of shit. I'm very much in that stage at the moment. So I'm hoping to have a little break from it and come back to it and fall in love with the characters all over again. Fingers crossed. In the meantime, yeah, I'm very excited about this anthology coming out, and I love it how we've all been Christmas nerds and Christmas Grinches and everything else, because yeah, it's fantastic. Can't wait.
Thanks, Pen. Alyssa?
So I'm not working on anything at the moment, but my next new release will be out in February, and it is Snowy Mountains Dawn, and it is the final, apart from this book out next week, it is the final chapter of my Snowy Mountain series. This is Brenna, and she's my horsewoman, and she says unless someone looks good on a horse and calls a shot, she's not interested. And it just so happens this city boy, who doesn't, spoiler alert, doesn't turn out to be quite so citified, comes to the mountains. And I had a lot of fun writing this story. And so now I just have to put my thinking hat on and think about where I'm going to go for my next series. But I'm actually going to take a break. I'll have a book out next year, and then I'll take a break, and then I'll be back. Already signed a contract, so back with my new series, which will be sound so long away, but that will be February 2025.
Wow.
Oh, is that right? Yes. No, actually, it's 2026.
2026.
So I have a book out 2024 next year, then I'm skipping a year, and then I'll be back in 2026. And I just want to say thank you so much, Pam, again for having us, and to all the other authors for being my Christmas collaborators.
Thank you. Stella?
Okay, so I've got a book coming out in June, and it's real fiction again. This one I've set in Queensland. First time I've set it in my home state. My mate is called Down the Track. It's a second chance romance, which I love writing. My main character, Jo, is a paleontologist, and she's recently divorced. Her 12-year-old son, she's having a cold war with him. Their relationship is completely terrible, and she's about to lose her job. She's no good at budgeting. She is on the bones of her ass, as we'd say in Queensland vernacular. And she gets this letter from these two old girls in outback Queensland in a town I've made up called Yindi Creek, which is based loosely off Winton, that they think there's a dinosaur buried on their sheep station. Can she come out and have a look, like a fossil? And she thinks, oh, this is, my God, if there really is a fossil, this could mean I could get a new contract at the museum where she works. This could be a turning point for her. And it's Christmas holidays, so she could take her son with her, a bit of camping. Yes, it'll be 40 degrees. They could die of heat exposure, but a bit of mother-son bonding time. Only problem is she's been to Yindi Creek once before, 15 years ago, and she had a fling with a local helicopter pilot called Gavin Huxtable. He's known as Hux to his mates. But surely he won't be there, and surely no one will remember her. So she goes out to Yindi Creek, but of course, yes, he is there. She thinks they just had a summer fling. He had his heart broken.
Oh.
And he was so traumatized by it. He also had a dream when he was 15 years ago. He wanted to be a thriller writer like Matthew Riley. So he's actually become a successful thriller writer in the meantime. And his main character in his series is this guy who's emotionally stunted because of a woman who dumped him years ago. So we've got a missing persons case. We've got a fossil possibly being dug up. We've got these two old birds who call themselves the Dirt Girls. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And
Lily?
I think all those books sound amazing, ladies, and I can't wait to find them on shelves not too far away. My next release is a country music Christmas in a country vet Christmas just next week, which is hugely exciting. I'm very excited about it. The book that I'm working on at the minute is a crime story. I wrote a crime story called The Waterhole that came out in 2022. That was my first sort of foray into that genre. So it's maybe a bit funny being a rural romance author mixed in with a bit of crime, but I do enjoy writing crime and mystery. So that's what I'd started. I'd be about 20 or 25,000 words into it, and it's called Best Served Cold.
nice.
And so that's what I'm working on, but I'm probably likely to shelve that soon and work on something maybe a bit more lighthearted again. The other thing happening for me next year, one of my older backlist stories is going to be in a HarperCollins anthology again. It'll be the second time for this particular book, which I do when your backlist kind of gets recycled through the the publishers' various avenues that they have to try and keep them fresh. And I like it from the business perspective, as I talked about, that you don't have to do more work on it, but you end up with a bit more income from it. Yeah, so like I said, honestly, I haven't been doing very much writing this year. I've found every life reason and excuse not to, but I do try. When I am on a roll, I'm pretty disciplined, and I'm definitely not an early morning person like some of you. But no, it's good. I need to kick up the butt. I need something to work on and get me going. Otherwise, I tend to drift through things. And also for me at the minute, it's being spring over in WA. One of my absolute loves is the wildflowers and the orchids. And there are so many out in the bush right now that I would take any excuse to not be sitting in a desk and get out amongst the bush at the moment. But yes, give me a deadline and I will come through.
Yes.
Right, I'll give you one.
I'm on a deadline for the end of October for a book called Out of the Ashes, which is the follow-on book. I've decided to write 2 follow-on books to Blackwattle Lake, and that's being published by Belinda Audio. So it's coming out on audio first. I'm really furiously trying to get that finished for the end of October to hand in. My backlist is being released kind of one at a time, including this new book, Out of the Ashes, and then another 3rd book, which will finish Eve's story that started in Blackwattle Lake. But I'm writing them as standalones as well, if somebody can pick them up and just read them. So, yeah. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. It is exciting that A Country Vet Christmas is out on October 4.
Look at us.
This
one thing we didn't think about, Pam, because remember we did have discussions by email about whether our characters had sex or not, or where they're up to. And someone, I think Stella, had a very funny comment that she's been divorced twice already. She's exhausted and whatever. Anyway.
Okay, I just want to clarify, that's not me who's been divorced twice. My character.
Your character.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do a very quick throw in of that, if you don't mind. That's a good idea, Pen. What's the heat rating on everybody's story? Because I know that between all of us, we have various heat ratings in terms of whether the bedroom doors open, closed, or blown to pieces. So, Pen, what's your heat rating on your story?
That's another challenge in the shorter format, because you want to make it believable. Yeah, my door's open. It normally is. My characters tend to talk when they're having sex, so they tend to have it whether it's 35,000 words or 105,000 words. So open, but very in context, very. They need to, yeah, that's all good. But yeah, it's quite a uplifting part of the story, I think, and it's a special part of the story. Yeah, door open for me.
What about yours, Lily? What about Jolene?
Mine is very, I think she describes it as a kiss that rocks her world. And then beyond that, it's imagined. Whether they even do it or not, I don't even know. Did they? I don't know. We finished the scene with the kiss that rocked her world, and then end chapter.
Yeah, don't give away too much. Stella?
Yeah, PG.
PG. Is that the same for all your books?
PG/M in my rural fiction. I've got some books that I've indie published previously. They're set in America, more of a standard adventure action romance sort of thing. I would call them Fade to Black. Yeah.
And Alyssa?
I'm all about the journey, not the destination. So mine are sweet and closed door. Yeah.
My story is more probably romantic elements. There is some romance in there, but we don't get to see them doing the hot and heavy stuff. So, Pen, I think you win the spicy rating for this anthology.
And the funny thing is, I never think of mine as particularly spicy, because I always think I don't think I've had enough experience for that.
Hey, we better wrap up.
Right, sorry.
A Country Vet Christmas is out on October 4. So this podcast is going to be out on October 6. So anybody who's listening, you should be able to find this in your local Big W and also Target, I believe. And you can always ask your independent bookseller to order it in if they don't have it. And it will also be available online at online bookstores. An ebook as well. Yeah.
And if anyone would like a signed copy, they can just email me on my website and Facebook, and I'll send them a signed copy as well.
Yeah, great. And Penelope and I, because we are both Sydney peeps, we are doing a little book tour out to Central West New South Wales.
Yeah.
And Alyssa is going to be joining us at Orange for a fabulous lunch at Collins Booksellers owned by Kelly Rimmer, which will be wonderful. And Pen and I are heading out to Forbes, Narromine, Cowra and Burrawa, following that, doing some libraries and writing workshops too. You can find info about that on our websites, and I'll pop it in the show notes.
Thank you, Pam, for organising the podcast, and thank you, Pen, for the idea. And ladies, it's been just lovely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah,
See ya.
thanks so much.
Have good
Lovely to see
days.
you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.